Good evening and welcome to episode 89 of The Organist Entertains in our new home of Friday evenings. And I do hope that this doesn't affect our Organist Entertains family and community too much. After all, we can always catch up if we're not able to tune in and watch as we go out live. But hopefully it's not too much of a change that's going to upset our weekly schedule. Episode 89 is brought to you week commencing the 28th of February. And there's lots going on in the world at the moment. Some not nice, nasty things. We will think about the ongoing situation in the Ukraine at the end of tonight's episode, but we do send our thoughts, prayers, good wishes to the people of the Ukraine as they deal with this unprovoked attack on their borders by Russia. So we think of all of Ukraine at this time. Our first item tonight is a request from Andrew MacLeod, and it is Timothy Dudley Smith's "We Turn to Christ Alone, the Son of God Divine, to bow the knee before his throne, to bear his name and sign, and walk the narrow way, to make his love and glory known, his word and will obey." It's set to the tune of Diadementa, which is the tune that we will all know and love, to crown him with many crowns. When Andrew requested this particular hymn tonight, he asked, will the 400 last verses feature in my request? And Andrew, yes it does. In the last verse, of course. So thank you for requesting such a stirring and uplifting hymn tonight as we begin episode 89. We turn to Christ alone. Our next item tonight is a request from Mark Nightingale. It's been a while since we've heard from Mark, and we heard at the weekend that Mark is suffering from some quite severe ill health at the moment, currently undergoing treatment, and we hope that that treatment does what it's meant to do, Mark. You've made a request for Nearer, My God, to Thee, to the tune that features in the Titanic. And that tune is called Bethany by Lowell and Mason. The organ here at Bellshill Central is a British battleship of an organ. And that means it's got lots of 8-foot stops, which makes it feel thick and lush and warm. And in a couple of the verses in Mark's request tonight, Nearer, My God, to Thee, we hear the lush, rich 8-foot stops. Thank you, Mark, for requesting your hymn, and we do all send our good wishes to you in your current situation with your health. Nearer, My God, to Thee. Our next hymn is a hymn which was given to me at church by choir member Sheena McKeown. The hymn is called For Those We Love Within the Veil, and that was written by William Charter Pigott in 1931. The version which Sheena gave me has some 7 verses, and according to the words which she gave me, it's found in Church Hymnary 3rd edition at hymn number 218. However, I've searched Church Hymnary from cover to cover and looked at 218 and can't find the hymn For Those We Love Within the Veil. Now, I did find it online and was sorry to say that I couldn't find the tune that the words which Sheena gave me says it's sung to. The tune that I was looking for is St Kentigern, and I can't find it anywhere. The tune which most hymnals set this to is called Es ist kein Tag, and that is a melody, a tune, which fits it really rather well. It fits the theme and the tone of the words. It's written by Johann D. Meyer, found in the hymnal of 1692. If anybody knows the tune, St Kentigern, please do let me know, and we'll include it again for Sheena with the words to the tune, which the words which was passed to me suggest that we sing it to. However, here we have your words, Sheena, and I know that they were given to you at a time of great loss and bereavement. So hearing these words to a tune will hopefully bring you comfort tonight. Thank you, Sheena, for your hymn requests. For Those We Love Within the Veil. Our next hymn comes from our friend, the Reverend Tony Newnham. Tony recently got in touch to say that he would miss a Wednesday edition of the Organist Entertains because he had been called up at short notice to deputise for an organist friend who had tested positive for COVID-19. And Tony was asked to deputise at the licensing of a new vicar in a parish close to where Tony lives. Now, it wasn't a parish within Rugby where Tony lives. It was a little bit further afield and involved country lanes and country roads. And Tony shared that it was taking place on, I think it was the beginning of Storm Dudley, where the wind and the rain and everything was lashing down, and Tony had to drive to this unfamiliar place, to an unfamiliar organ to play for this licensing ceremony. The assembled village choir had chosen to sing as an anthem this hymn, the hymn that Tony has chosen tonight. And perhaps it's because of the circumstances recently where you played this hymn, Tony, that you've picked it, or it may be your favourite hymn for another reason. But nonetheless, we have, "Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus." And those words are written by Samuel Trevor Francis, born 1832 and died in 1925. The tune which Tony has requested and the tune which Tony played at that licensing ceremony is Ebenezer, a wonderful, grand Welsh tune written by Thomas John Williams. And since the last verse book happened to be on the console, we delve into the Noel Rosethorn last verse for verse number 3. So now we have a hymn which I know lots of people are going to enjoy. I know Sheila Miller will enjoy it because it evokes the sounds of the valleys, and I know that Elspeth Dornan is going to like it because it's in her favourite tone, the minor key. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, to the tune of Ebenezer. Well, now we turn to our friend Ed Anderson in South Africa. Ed is very, very good at sending me over requests to play in the Organist Entertains, and I look forward to Ed's emails because he requests tunes which we over here in the UK may not be so familiar with. However, they're usually lovely tunes, and we thanked Ed for his input into our fortnightly now Organist Entertains. The hymn that Ed requests tonight is Ere I Sleep for Every Favour, and the words are by John Kennick. The tune is called Evensong, and it's an unfamiliar metre. The first line of 8 syllables, the second line of 3 syllables, followed by another line of 3, finishing with a line of 6. Written by O.J. Stimson, born in 1835. We get to hear some of the softer, more mellow tones of the organ with this short 6-verse hymn requested by Ed. So thank you, Ed, for your first choice tonight, and we'll get to your second in a moment or two. But for now, we have Ere I Sleep for Every Favour. Well, we're almost at the end. It's a short episode tonight, and we return to our friend Ed in South Africa. Ed has requested the hymn, Lord Speak to Me That I May Speak, words written by Francis Ridley Havergal. Now, Francis Ridley Havergal wrote many hymns which form many of our church hymnals. I once heard someone describe Francis Ridley Havergal as a frail and delicate woman. But if you were to think of the stirring words of the hymns that she wrote, you would think of another lady. The tune which Ed requests is not a tune which we may be familiar with over here in the United Kingdom, and it got me thinking about the different tunes that we can sing this particular hymn to. Now, I was brought up a child of Church Hymnary 3rd edition, which some may love and some may loathe. And the hymn, Lord, Speak to Me That I May Speak, in the church that I grew up in Wishaw, was invariably sang to Warrington, which we would sing to Jesus shall reign with ere the sun. Lord, speak to me that I may speak. CH4 sets it to a different tune, but I believe that may have been the tune which we would have known and sang it to before CH3 came along. And I once came across a recording, I think it was Palmerston Place Church in Edinburgh, of their congregation perhaps in the 40s or 50s singing Lord, Speak to Me That I May Speak, to the tune that we're going to begin with, the tune which it's now set to in CH4. The tune is called Winscott, and it's written by Samuel Sebastian Wesley. And it just shows that when you sing familiar words to different tunes, it makes you think of the words first and foremost, but B, it changes the mood and the tone of the words, because even although Warrington and Winscott are both set in 3/4 time, Winscott has got a slower pulse to it, and it makes it sound a bit more grander, and it makes you actually hear the words a little bit clearer. And of course, Winscott goes like this. Lord, speak to me that I may speak in living echoes of your tone. Now that may bring back lots of memories for people, but that's the tune which we're going to start with. We're going to have an introduction, and then we're going to have 2 verses of Lord, Speak to Me to this particular tune. And then we'll come back and we'll look at some more tunes. Now we're going to have Warrington, and Warrington is adapted by Ralph Harrison, and he died in 1810. We're going to have 2 verses of Warrington, and we're going to meander into that book which is sitting over my left shoulder, the last verses by Noel Rosethorn. And this will probably be the tune that most people are familiar with. And of course it goes like this. Lord, speak to me that I may speak in living echoes of your tone. And of course, we all know that to Jesus shall reign where'er the sun as well. So enjoy a sing of Warrington to the words, Lord, speak to me that I may speak. And finally, we come to Ed's requested tune. I had difficulty finding it, but thanks to the internet, I was able to find it. The tune is Galilee, and it's written by Philip Arms, who died in 1908. Again, we find it in 3/4 time, waltz time, and in the major key, so it sounds happy and bright. Looking at the tune, set in its 4-part harmony, it looks a little bit something like Richmond for Fill Thou Our Life, O Lord our God, or what's the other one we sing that to? Oh, for a thousand tongues to sing. However, once you play it, it fits nice under the fingers, and it's got some nice little runs in it, which makes it sound like Warrington or Duke Street or hymns of that ilk. However, it's not one that I knew, and that's why I love waiting for Ed's hymn choices and requests, because he always brings something new to the table for us, and we're so grateful that you contribute so frequently, Ed. So now we have, for the 3rd time, Lord, speak to me that I may speak, all the verses this time, to Ed's set tune of Galilee. Now, for those who tuned in last week, we all know that we're meeting on a Friday evening because church choir here at Bellshill Central has now resumed after a 2-year hiatus. So, as I am thinking towards our first practice back and things that we may learn to sing, I stumbled across this particular hymn. At Bellshill Central, we celebrate the sacrament of communion quarterly, and that's a bit of a historical peculiarity, if that's the right way to put it, in the Presbyterian Church in Scotland. When we separated from the established church, we had, someone told me in the kind of a history of the church in Scotland, we had a severe shortage of ministers, and that seems to have come full circle, whereby ministers who had broken away from the established church to form the Church of Scotland as it was, had to travel between parishes, and no longer could people celebrate the act of Holy Communion weekly. They had to wait on an ordained minister coming, and sometimes that worked out quarterly. And in some Highland parishes, even in the 21st century, communion is perhaps celebrated only once or twice a year. That's a little background as to why some churches still celebrate communion quarterly. So it's coming up to our quarterly communion, and I was thinking, what could the choir do now that we're back meeting? I stumbled across in the side pews a Stuart Townend hymn called Behold the Lamb of God, which I do believe we started practising before lockdown. And I also stumbled across this hymn. Speak, O Lord, as we come to you, to receive the food of your holy word. And I thought that we might, this coming Wednesday, or Wednesday past, because you're watching this after the fact, that we would sing this, get to know it again, and perhaps sing it together as a choir up here on where the choir sits on Communion Sunday, as the bread and the wine is distributed amongst the congregation. It's a hymn written by Stuart Townend and Keith Getty, and it's a wonderful hymn, a gentle hymn, and you get to hear some of the softer tones and sounds from the organ in this particular hymn. Speak, O Lord, as we come to you, written by Stuart Townend and Keith Getty. And if you worship with us either in person or online on the 13th of March, you may very well hear this being sung by the choir. Well, we've come to the end tonight, but as I mentioned at the beginning, we can't not meet and think of the terrible situation happening in the Ukraine. So tonight we finish by listening to and watching the words on the screen of the Ukrainian national anthem. The Ukrainian national anthem goes back more years than the current constituted country of the Ukraine, because the current country, Ukraine, came to being in 1991, but the Ukrainian national anthem goes back hundreds of years before it. It's a stirring, strong, and powerful melody. You can almost imagine hundreds and thousands of people in the streets singing it. It's one of those pieces of music which quite literally can have the hairs on the back of your neck standing on end. And the words, and I'm not going to attempt the official lyrics in Ukrainian, but I'm going to read down a translation to you. Ukraine's glory hasn't perished, nor freedom, nor will. Upon us, fellow kin, fate shall smile once more. Our enemies will vanish like dew in the morning sun, and we too shall rule, brothers, in a free land of our own. And those words are so relevant to where we are today. So as we listen to and watch the words of the Ukraine people's national anthem on the screen, let's think and pray about the terrible situation that they find themselves in, that diplomatic and political pressure will make an end to this terrible, terrible invasion into their country. The Ukrainian national anthem. Well, folks, we've reached the end of episode 89, and I've stood up just so that you can see the lovely yellow roses that are behind me that graced the organ at Sunday's service and had to be slightly moved out of the way for my Speaky bits, otherwise it looked like I had a bouquet of flowers sprouting from the top of my head. We love yellow roses here in Bells Hill. Yellow roses signify friendship. And when we have yellow roses gracing the top of the organ, we remember our friends who are no longer with us. However, the yellow roses also remind us to think about friends, some of whom we may not know, overseas at times of trouble and strife. So the yellow roses on top of the organ tonight, we also think of the people of the Ukraine who are going through such a terrible, terrible time. Families being separated, mums and children fleeing the country, and dads having to stay behind. Who would have thought that in the year 2022 we were living in such times? Hopefully, by the time we come to episode 90, things will have calmed down. People at a table, because you can only talk around a table, you can't talk with guns and tanks and planes flying. Hopefully, some talks on peace will be forthcoming. All that said and done, we do live in serious times, and coming together as we do at the Organist Entertains, whether it be people in Bells Hill, whether it be people a little bit further south, whether it be people over land and seas, we do enjoy coming together. And the Organist Entertains was born out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's still continuing, even although we are learning to live with COVID-19. It is something which has drawn people together, and we have become friends through our love of organ music, our love of hymns, our church lives drawn together. We've become friends, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing born out of such a horrible thing, COVID-19. So, send me your requests for episode 90. We will be in the season of Lent by that point, and I do hope to include lots of lovely Lenten reflective tunes and melodies, and I hope to hear your favourite Lenten hymns as well. Stay safe, everyone. We do live in a troubled world. Keep healthy, because COVID has not gone away. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for some more Organist Entertains with episode 90. Good night.